Munchkins and viewers alike, it's me, Munchie. 3 days ago, something terrible happened to my female hamster, Lil Missy. For those of you who do not know Lil Missy, she is a 1 year and 4 months old, as we estimated, black and white Syrian hamster that I got from PetSmart's adoption program. Lil Missy is my first hamster I've had in a very long time, ever since I lost my gumdrop back in 2013, 2014. But 3 days ago, I had a very bad incident with Lil Missy. I come in, as always, to feed them treats and to make sure their food is okay and that their water bottles are fine and filled, their wheels are turning, as well as I tend to get them veggies and fruits. Fruits every once in a while, veggies daily. So I was bringing in some romaine lettuce that night, and the first cage I always check is Lil Missy. So for Lil Missy, I took the top off and I noticed she was in the top left corner above where her burrow is, and I noticed she was shaking, and I got really concerned because I'm like, oh, did I just wake you up? I'm so sorry, because usually by 10 o'clock they're all awake or they're all semi-awake, maybe not as active. But Lil Missy started walking towards me, and her walk was like a drunk. It was wobbly, it was not straight, it almost looked like she had a stroke. And at first I thought she did. I was so worried. So what I did after that was I picked her up, and then as soon as I touched her fur, I was just red flags, went into shock. She was stone cold. My instincts kicked in. I went over and I turned up the thermostat for my heater. Now I have a space heater and that thing takes forever, so I decided to crank it up to 75 degrees. It doesn't actually get that cold here in my bedroom. It's like the warmest place in the whole entire house, but for my bedroom I tend to keep it warm just because I have tropical fish, but they do have their own heaters, so I like this room to be warm so I'm not freezing cold at night. And on that day it was actually quite warm, so I didn't really need to have the heater on. So I immediately grabbed her out of her cage and I went on my bed and I laid down with her in my arms next to my chest. And my boyfriend came down and I immediately told him what was happening, and we all thought that she was not going to make it. So I asked him kindly to please film some of this and to take photos because I might lose her tonight. 10 o'clock at night, you can't really take a hamster to a vet. And vets around here will only see large mammals. That's another reason why knowing exactly what's happening is crucial in moments like these, because if you don't know and you need a vet's advice and you need to take the hamster to the vet, you might not have an exotic vet in your area. Now, hamsters aren't really exotics, but they fall under the category of exotic vets because that's what they typically see. They see things that normal vets don't see. So I couldn't call a vet, and the nearest vet that sees exotics was about 22 miles away. And I did not want to put Lil Missy through that, but unfortunately, if I wanted to get her better, I would have to bring her to a vet that actually sees hamsters. So I was holding her for about 20 minutes and I noticed that she was sneezing or coughing. It kind of sounds like a sneeze, but it was just this pitiful little sneeze. And I was really concerned. I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe it wasn't a stroke like I originally thought, because she was wobbling. Maybe it's like an infection, like an upper respiratory infection, which unfortunately you would need antibiotics for that. So I sat there for 20 minutes with her in my arms. I thought all of a sudden after that 20 minutes, well, she's not getting better. She's going downhill. She's opening and closing her eyes a lot. So what can I do? A physical. Immediately I made sure to flip her over and to check for any lumps. If it's a tumor, then you'll know where it's coming from and why maybe her system is shutting down, as well as I want to look for any cuts in case she didn't manage to cut herself somehow and maybe there's an infection that she is currently fighting. So after looking at her body and seeing everything's good, I looked at her teeth. Her teeth were fine. I made sure that there was no infections in her mouth, and then I flipped her over. As soon as I did that, I noticed she started to drool a little bit, and I got really concerned. And maybe 3 seconds after that, I noticed that she started oozing pink liquid out of her nose, and I thought, oh my gosh, I am losing her right now. So I got really scared. I wrapped her in her cloth and I put her in her bin because I think she was going. I didn't want to hold her as she was going because it scared me. And with her, she had these moments of confusion and energy. So when an animal gets, to the last stages of its life, you notice that they get very confused and they have energy and they're sprawling around, but their mind is just in a blur. They just move and pace and they act erotic. And that's what was happening with Lil Missy. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's going right then and there. And right then and there, she let out 3 big yawns. Well, it looked like she was yawning, but at that moment you know that she was grasping for air. And then her body became lifeless. And she laid there as if she was in peace. And I was so devastated because I was like, she's gone. But all of a sudden, I want to say it was probably 5 to 10 seconds after that, she burst with energy. I could not believe it. She just woke up and started to crawl away. That to me right there was the most surprising thing I have ever seen. And my boyfriend and I were just in shock at that moment. But I knew she wasn't out of the woods yet, because what if she walked into her tunnel and then she died there? Because that's what she was doing. She wanted to go in her tunnel. And so at that moment in the bin cage, I had already put the bin cage right next to the heater. I forgot to say that earlier, but I did put the bin cage by the heater, so the bin cage was getting warm. I didn't put it too close, but after that I got really, really nervous, so I took out my heating pad and I put it underneath the bin cage. Now with that, I would say for you guys, don't do that unless you were there supervising, because throughout the entire night, all the way from 10 o'clock until 1 and 1:30 in the morning, I was there watching her, monitoring her, and I felt the heating pad. It was on the lowest setting and it warmed up the area of which was right underneath where her tunnel is. Now she has a ton of bedding, as you could probably see behind me. She's puts it by like one spot on one side of her cage, and so she had a lot of room too. But I made sure it didn't get too hot, but honestly I feel like the heat treatment really did do a lot for her to get her back to a healthy stage, because after that I just monitored her. I made sure she wasn't gone. When she was in her tunnel, I put the cloth on top of her tunnel to kind of insulate her, and I made sure to just, you know, go on all the forums, see if there's anything describing my hamster. And I did find a few videos that kind of pointed towards an upper respiratory infection, but then I also saw some forums and some people saying that maybe she might have had like some sort of heart failure or seizure, but there wasn't really a lot of symptoms that were similar to mine when it came to like heart attack or seizure. But heart attack, I've never actually thought that a hamster could have a heart attack. However, she is my biggest female I have ever owned. She is huge for a Syrian hamster that I've ever seen before, even in pet stores. I've seen some pretty big ones, but she seems like she's bigger. She looks like a cow. She is huge. So maybe there is a possibility that she could have some form of heart failure, and that could be why that happened, but it doesn't explain the pink liquid. But I decided for that night at 1 o'clock that she seems like she's okay. She just did like a total Jesus move where she came back from the dead and is fine now. And so I was very scared to go to bed, but I had to go to bed because I worked in the morning. And I woke up early and I checked on her, and what do you know? She is back to no more wobbly. It was so weird. She came back from the dead like Jesus. Anyways, so I felt her and she's warm. Beautiful, perfect, warm hammy. I was really, really traumatized. I decided that that day, if she did have an upper respiratory infection, that I was gonna go buy thyme, the herb, and do what Victoria Raechel actually suggested. I saw one of her videos in a forum, I clicked on it, and there's the thyme tea. And so I decided to go out and get a syringe and thyme, fresh thyme, not dried thyme, because fresh is a lot better. And so I soaked that day when I came home in hot boiling water, let it cool down, and then I just gave her a little bit. And I checked on her and she was fine again. Just there's no indication that there was anything wrong. Now that morning when I found out she was alive and well, she was still kind of sneezing a little bit, but that night she was not sneezing at all. And the next day, not sneezing at all. And here we are, not sneezing at all, doing fine behind me. So guys, if you've had something similar to me, like the pink liquid oozing from her nostrils or anything like the whole sneezing like I showed you in this video today, I want to know from the community what your thoughts are on this. I still want to go to a vet, but unfortunately that morning when I knew she was all fine and well, that was the first thing I did. I called vets. And unfortunately, the vet that is 22 miles away does not take care credit, and he actually charges kind of a lot. So unfortunately, I couldn't at that time and right now go to a vet. I would have to save up money, and that's the hard part too, because this vet is in a very rich area, so that's why he charges so much money, because he knows his clients are pretty wealthy. And that's what happens to Seattle. You get like parts of Seattle that they're very rich and wealthy and they're well off, and then you got other parts of Seattle which are not well off and they have lower prices. Same with Seattle's housing crisis. I'm not gonna talk about that. My hammy is the one I'm talking about here. But for Little Missy, she is well. And I want to know too, guys, if you've actually had this happen to your hamster before and are curious as to know what it could be. Just leave any comments down below. I would appreciate it so much. And thank you for watching this video today. If you did like it, hit like to show support, as well as showing support for Little Missy too, and to just hopefully for her to get 100% better, because I feel like she's still not out of the woods yet. However, she's doing great and she's just a wonderful little hammy. And if you want to see more content from me, please subscribe and become a part of the Munchkin family. Thank you guys so much, and the next time I give you guys an update on her, hopefully everything is better. But all my other hammies are healthy and I still have my foster hammy here. So thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.